Okay, so today we're diving into something I think we all kind of struggle with.
Yeah,
Criticism,
it's a tough one.
right? Like, how do you handle it? So the notes for this deep dive, um,
Yeah.
they're interesting.
Oh, yeah.
They look like almost like someone's personal notes from like maybe a lecture or a workshop.
Hmm.
But it's not just the, how to not cry during a performance review kind of stuff.
Right.
This goes deeper. We're talking, yeah, practical techniques, but then it gets into like the psychology
Hmm.
and even the spiritual side of turning this criticism like into something good,
Yeah.
into growth.
It's a total perspective shift, isn't it?
No.
What really jumped out at me right away was this gratitude shift.
Okay.
And the notes are really pushing this idea that instead of seeing criticism as, oh, you're attacking me, as a personal thing, we should try to come at it with, well, gratitude.
Gratitude.
Yeah, like be grateful for the feedback.
Yeah.
Almost like recognize that even when it's delivered poorly, a lot of the time it comes from this place of wanting to help us get better.
I can see that. I can see that in theory, but like
Right.
sometimes
Right.
in the moment, it's really hard to feel grateful
Oh, 100%.
when someone's like, you did this wrong, this was wrong, you messed that up. Like, you know,
Yeah, it's not easy. It definitely takes practice, but the notes they acknowledge that. They're saying, "Hey, this is not an easy thing to do." But they encourage us to try to see that criticism as a almost like a gift, a present. Even if it's wrapped kind of clumsily, it's still giving us good information, valuable information we can use to get better. And they even cite some research in here that apparently 90% of feedback, regardless of how it's given, is intended to actually help improve performance.
90%. That seems high.
Yeah. It surprised me too when I read that. So,
I guess that means that most of the time they're not just trying to be mean.
right, exactly. It's coming from a good place.
So, okay, 90% of the time they're coming from a good place.
Hmm.
How do we actually make that shift, though?
Right. How do we actually do it?
The gratitude shift.
Well, luckily they give us a bit of a framework in these notes. So it's a three-step reflection process. Okay. Ready?
Yeah, hear me.
So the first one is to really listen to the feedback and not just, waiting for your turn to talk, but really actively trying to hear what they're saying, understand the message,
Okay.
and then, next step you analyze it. Is there any truth in here? Is there something I can actually learn from this even if I don't agree with everything? Is there a nugget of truth in this feedback?
Uh-huh.
And then finally, instead of immediately dismissing it, you seek to understand. Understand the person who is giving you the feedback.
Okay.
What are they thinking? What are their motivations? What perspective are they coming from?
So it sounds like it's a lot of like taking a step back from your immediate emotional reaction.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you got it. And that's really where the emotional intelligence comes in, right? And the Knights talk about this a lot, about considering, is this person, are they trying to help me succeed here? Are they worried about something? Are they maybe, trying to protect me from something? And they have a really good example. Like, imagine a colleague critiquing your presentation.
Right.
It's really easy to take that personally and be like, oh, they hate my work. But what if their feedback, what if it's actually coming from this place of they want you to nail that next presentation?
Right.
They want you to get that promotion.
Yeah, they want to see you succeed.
They want to see you succeed.
Okay, that's a good point. So it's really about understanding like the why
Yeah.
behind what they're saying.
Exactly. The motivation.
And this kind of ties into what I think is the most interesting part of all of this.
Oh, yeah.
Is like the spiritual and psychological side of things that these notes keep bringing up.
Right.
This idea of practicing gratitude for that guidance you get, seeing the challenges, like the criticism as opportunities to grow, and like really cultivating humility, self-reflection. It's deep stuff.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not just about the practical, like how to handle feedback one-on-one. It's a whole mindset shift.
Right.
And what I find fascinating is how they connect this to the idea of, not taking the criticism personally.
Oh.
It's not about you as a person,
Yeah.
It's about your work, your actions, your choices.
Mhm.
And when you can really separate those things, that's when you can start to analyze it objectively and actually use it as fuel for growth.
Oh, I like that. Fuel for growth. So you're not letting it weigh you down. You're using it to propel yourself forward.
Exactly. It's almost, like a rocket ship.
Yeah.
The criticism is the fuel that helps you blast off.
Okay, so speaking of growth and blasting off, there's this pretty inspiring story in the notes here.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's about someone who faced like really intense, very public criticism but somehow they managed to stay like totally composed. They didn't get all defensive. They didn't lash out, get angry, anything. They kind of absorbed the feedback, thought about it, reflected on it, and used it to actually get better.
That's amazing.
And it said they even like reached some kind of spiritual elevation through the process.
You know, that story really, it's the perfect example of everything we've been talking about.
Right.
It really shows how powerful this approach can be, not just for, your work life, but for your overall well-being.
Exactly.
So the big question is, how can you apply this to your own life?
Right. How do we actually take all of this and put it into practice?
Well, good news, because the notes also give us a practical framework.
Okay.
A 4-step framework for responding to criticism effectively.
I'm listening, taking notes.
Okay, step 1, active listening.
Okay.
We already touched on that a little bit.
Yep.
Really being present and engaged when you're getting that feedback.
Uh-huh.
Number 2, thoughtful reflection. Taking the time to actually process what you've heard, analyze it for that truth, like we talked about in the reflection process.
Okay. Makes sense.
Number 3, and this one might surprise you, expressing gratitude.
Gratitude.
Gratitude, even if it was tough to hear, acknowledge their effort, acknowledge their intention.
Wow, I love that. It seems so simple,
Right.
but it's almost like it just diffuses the whole situation.
It changes the energy completely.
Right.
And then finally, and maybe this is the most important step of all, seeking that personal growth.
Okay.
What can you learn from this experience? What concrete steps can you take to improve?
Right.
And they actually have this really helpful table in the notes that kind of breaks down how to apply these steps in different scenarios.
Okay.
Like unexpected criticism, emotional feedback, constructive suggestions. It's really practical.
Personally, that emotional feedback, that's a tough one for me.
Yeah, I get that.
It can feel like too much. I don't even know where to start sometimes.
Well, and the notes address that head on. You're not alone in that feeling. They actually suggest some specific techniques for staying grounded, managing your emotions when it feels like it's just too much.
Okay, like what? What do they suggest? What are some of those techniques?
Well, one of the things they say is to try naming your emotions as you're feeling them.
Naming them.
Yeah, like actually saying to yourself, okay, right now I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling hurt, or I'm feeling defensive. Because when you name it, it kind of takes away some of its power. It helps you separate yourself from the emotion a little bit so you can see it more objectively.
Okay, so you're not letting it totally overtake you.
Exactly. And then another technique they suggest, and this one I find really helpful, is to focus on your breath.
Breath work.
Yeah, because when we get stressed or upset, our breathing tends to get shallow and fast.
Right.
So by consciously slowing down your breath, taking some deep, deliberate breaths, it can actually help calm your nervous system and bring you back to a more centered place.
So you're kind of short-circuiting that stress response.
Exactly, yeah. You're hitting the reset button. And then one more technique, and I think this one's really cool, is to try visualizing a protective shield around yourself.
A shield?
Yeah, imagine this bubble of light or energy that's surrounding you, and it's deflecting all that negative energy or criticism that's coming your way.
Oh, that's a good one. So you're not just absorbing it all.
Right. It's like you're creating a boundary.
Yeah.
And it can be anything you want. It can be a force field. It can be a shimmering light. It can be a wall of flowers, whatever resonates with you.
Okay, so you're kind of taking control of the situation.
Exactly. You're taking your power back.
And speaking of power, the notes also talk about the importance of remembering your own strengths and accomplishments.
Oh, that's so crucial.
Right. Because when you're feeling criticized, it's easy to get caught up in those negative thoughts and start doubting yourself.
Totally.
So taking a moment to remind yourself of all the things you've done well, all the positive feedback you've received in the past, it can really help boost your confidence and resilience.
It's like you're building up your inner reserves so you can weather the storm.
And then, one final thing I want to touch on, because I think it's so important, is that sometimes it's okay to walk away.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're in a situation where the criticism feels relentless or it's just plain mean-spirited, you don't have to subject yourself to that.
You always have the right to protect your own well-being.
Right. It's about setting boundaries, knowing your worth, and refusing to engage in anything that's harmful to your mental or emotional health.
And that's true power.
So, with all of this in mind, the notes actually end with this really thought-provoking question.
Oh, I love a good question. What is it?
It says, how can you view criticism not as a threat, but as a stepping stone on your personal growth journey?
Wow. That's a powerful one.
Right? So instead of seeing it as something to fear or avoid, it's about embracing it as an opportunity to learn, to evolve, to become the best version of yourself.
I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we all have the power to choose how we respond to criticism. And with the right mindset and tools, we can transform it from a negative experience into a catalyst for growth and positive change.
Absolutely.
So next time you find yourself facing criticism, remember all of this
Take a deep breath.
and see it as a chance to step up and grow.
You got this.
You got this.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive.
Until next time.
Bye.
See ya.